If you are a modern writer, your biggest struggle is finding readers. At the start, it feels like you are walking through a desert with no one who wants to read your work. But if we are going to kick off a literary renaissance, then we will have to discover new pathways and models of finding readers, because the old models of just sending your work to a slush pile or advertising on Amazon are dead. And in this presentation, I'm going to show you guys the different types of readers and who you should be going after and where they are, because there are millions of Manchurian candidates out there who speak your language, no matter if you speak English or Portuguese, who can read, who maybe do read, but who just don't know about your stuff yet. And if you don't know, my name is Ian, and here on Right Conscious, I talk about the best books and authors of all time. I also help authors like you activate for the literary renaissance. And so I want to do a quick review of the 3 different paths of becoming a full-time author, and it's very fast. There is the traditional publishing route, where you will need to sell around 50,000 books per year to sustain yourself. And remember, that's 50,000 per year. That's not just you have a great launch. Or you could sell around 10,000 books per year if you self-publish. But the new path is the literary renaissance path, which is if you find 1,000 true fans, 1,000 real readers, then you can get the same results as having a publishing company sell 50,000 of your books per year, or figuring out how to advertise on Amazon or do whatever and sell 10,000 books per year. And I get questions all of the time that say, hey, why don't you start a Discord or a group where we can all come together and edit each other's work and this and that and read each other's work? And what I've found is that it's a very inefficient way to grow an audience of 1,000 true fans, because there is a hierarchy of readers, which we're going to explore right now. There are fake readers, people who maybe claim they read your work or just hit like on your work or just aren't readers at all. It's more common than you think. We don't need to talk about them though. Then there are other writers. And this may be surprising, but some of the last people you want to be reading your work are other writers, because at some level, writers are inherently selfish. And writers also have very strong opinions on what should be in a work and what shouldn't be in a work. For instance, when I see certain things, especially from a living author who's given me their work, I sometimes cringe, because I'm like, why would they make that choice? But if I see Tolstoy doing it, for whatever reason, I don't think that. As a writer, I've had to cement down certain standards in my brain, which makes it hard to edit and actually be a good reader. Plus, there is always a two-sided coin with writers, in the sense that when a writer reads your work, they are going to want you to read their work, which at the start, this is not a problem. And I've said this before, if you have 0 people reading your work right now, then you need to do whatever it takes to get someone to read your work. It doesn't matter what it takes, because you have nobody. It doesn't matter if they're fake or they're another writer. Get anybody you can. And if you think about it, you have all day. Every time you're on your phone watching me or doing something else, you could be trying to find somebody to read your work. Because when you get one fan, the hardest part is going from 0 to 1. And we'll talk about a little bit later where to find people in that process. But I just want to get that in your head right now, that you have all the time in the world, and it doesn't matter who it is. You're not going to find a beta reader or a super fan as your first person, most likely. And so next on the list is an editing exchange, where you find another writer, most likely, to read your work, and then you exchange editing with them. You have to go and read their work. And this is somewhat good, because you are going to get some critiques on your work. And if you have no one reading your work, this may be very valuable. But the problem with this is that it's not sustainable. Once you reach how many people, I don't know, it's not really useful. But this is a very good way, one could say, to get people to read your work. But once again, it's basically useless, because I want to introduce this concept now to you guys. I go to many of your Substack profiles or your Amazon profiles, and I have no idea what you write about until I click on one of your stories and read it. And on this channel, I mostly talk about writing literary fiction, but there is something to priming. I should know before I click on any of your stuff, whether it's on Instagram or on Substack or whatever other website, what I'm kind of getting into, just from the color scheme and the intro and the name of the title and the font and all of that. And I'm mentioning this because that is you beckoning out. You're not looking for anybody. This isn't who is my mother. Are you my reader? Are you my reader? You're looking for a specific reader. You only need 1,000 of them, someone who is going to like your stuff. So you can polarize and call to them and say, this is what we do here. Anyway, the problem with editing exchanges and getting in with other writers is that they are not interested in what you are doing. They are not specialized in that. They haven't read what you have read. They don't understand where you are coming from most of the time. And another unspoken truth is most writers suck at editing. People tell me all the time, hey, Ian, read my work, this and that. And I want to tell, and I don't have time to do it, but I also want to tell them I'm not as good of an editor as you maybe think I am. Unless you are in my kind of chosen field, then my advice is probably not going to be very good. Even if you see me up here on the microphone and you think I have some form of authority, it's not real when it comes to your work. And that's why this kind of hierarchy is so important, because you need to find people who are the correct fit, or you're never actually going to have real readers or people who can help you. And so next are the silent readers. And so I have plenty of people. I get over 50,000 people a month looking at just my writing on Substack, but almost none of them comment. They just look at it. And that's the case with most readers. There are going to be people who either buy your book and never review it, never say a word to you, look at your posts on Substack or Instagram and never say a word. But they exist, and they do make up the majority of your readership. Next, we have the real readers. People who are going to comment, who are going to reach out, who are going to send you an email and be like, wow, that was really good. And these people are important for social reinforcement, to kind of let you know that you are on the right path, because sadly, everyone likes to assume that they are the new Kafka or they are the new misunderstood artist. You know, I have writers all the time tell me, Ian, I can't understand. I don't know why I don't have an audience. Everyone's so dumb. And then I read their work, and no offense to them, no matter what perspective I was coming from, it would suck. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's objectively bad. And that's just unspoken, that to find real readers most of the time, you need something that's either very good in a stylistic sense and is going to draw them in, or very good in an entertaining sense and is going to keep them going, or a mix of both. And then last but not least, we have beta readers, people who are going to want to read deeper. They're maybe going to want to read the novel that you are working on because they've found you on Substack and like some of your stuff, or they're going to want to read your new short story or just help you, and they're going to be giving you advice, and they are the right person. They are someone that you can trust with their reaction. And if you have a group of them, let's say 20 of them, and you give them this story, then the general opinion is most of the time right. And that's what makes beta readers so important, is that if you give your story to one beta reader and like, hey, this sucks, you can be like, oh no, they don't understand it. But if 15 out of 20 say we got a problem here, then there is probably something wrong. And that maybe doesn't mean you need to overhaul your entire story, but maybe add some transitions, or, just work on a couple things that aren't functioning correctly. And so now we know the 3 different paths and the 6 different types of readers. And so now the question is, where do you find them? And so I now want to return to this idea of priming, because I don't believe in this concept of niching down. And I have actually a 3-hour program on how to build your audience as a modern writer. That's free. There is a link down below if you guys want that. That course has helped dozens of people get hundreds of readers, and helped hundreds of people get dozens of readers. And that number is probably going to be in the thousands soon. And so I talk about all this and more. But in general, when you look at the authors behind me, and their short stories and their novels and their entire collection, if they did nonfiction, it all exists most of the time in the same universe. Not like an exact universe, but I could pick up one of their books and not know it was them and make a guess that it was them, even if it's totally different content. Most writers don't write one book that's fantasy and the next one's a book of poetry, then they write a Western. It's really not like that. And the reason is that they're not doing that necessarily for marketing reasons. It's because they're actually building strength in a certain style. It's a lie that you could write maybe if you're the god tier writer, but for most of us, it's a lie that you could write an S tier fantasy novel, an S tier literary fiction novel, and like do 15 different projects throughout your life and excel in that. Most of the time, authors focus in a certain zone. And there's wide variance, obviously, in the stories, but their style and their approach and those types of things are very similar. But when I see what people are presenting on their Substack page or their Instagram, most of the time it's highly variable. And I don't know if that's just our ADHD culture or people not understanding this, but it's okay to have that variation of stuff. But in general, you should focus and actually ask yourself, and this is hard. This is what Cormac McCarthy and everyone didn't have to do. Oh, they didn't have to do that. Woe is me. But you're going to have to actually ask yourself and look at your backlog or ask, what am I actually trying to do? Or even harder, if you don't know, what am I trying to do? Like, what's my future body of work going to look like? And maybe if you don't know, maybe you're not ready for this yet. But when you do know, then you can actually prime and brand to that part. Because when you hear the word branding, most of the time you think of Nike or these corporations, but branding in actuality is just like the classical term, like branding. And if you think of like cows, if you and I are running a ranch and we see a random cow and it has no brand, what are we going to do? We're probably going to take the cow. But then if we see a brand and it's with someone we like, a neighboring farmer, we'll go return the cow. And if it's a cow of someone we hate, we maybe go kill the cow. So brand can have these different connotations, but if there's no brand, then nobody cares. And so whatever brand, whatever priming mechanism that you're going to be doing is important for first-time people, but more importantly, for repeated exposures to your work, because there have been a ton of studies and they've shown that most of the time someone just doesn't become an automatic buyer, especially online. Most of the time it's going to take someone at least, or I should say, they'll have to read 10 different of your works before they'll ever consider buying your book or subscribing to you on Substack. So think about that again. They're going to have to read 10 different things, and they'll most likely also will most likely go to your Instagram and check your author website or other places too before they ever give you any money and become a real reader. Unless you have a groundbreaking piece that just shocks them from the start and they're like, wow, this was great. But even then, it's going to take them multiple exposures. And so during that time, if those exposures are highly variable, then are they going to want to become a real reader or a beta reader, or are they going to be somewhat confused? And so the first step to actually getting readers is aligning what you are actually doing and figuring that out. Because if you don't, then you're going to miss out on so many different people. And if you don't know this yet, then that's fine. And you can still build an audience and do stuff. But you don't have to rush this. And I'm not encouraging anyone to rush this. But this is something to contemplate. Because like I said, it seems like everyone else behind me figured this out at some point. And seemingly at the start of their career, they knew where they were going. And there are obviously some outliers. And so finding readers is as simple as finding out what you are writing, then figuring out how to brand and prime your page and your persona to that, and not changing what you are going to write and letting whatever you want flow out of you. And if there's random variable things like a Bigfoot erotica story, you can post that, no big deal, or post that somewhere else. It's not the end of the world. And that's somewhat good to have random stuff to shock people. But once you have that, then you can turn up the marketing angle. Then you can open up the funnel because you know where to look. If you are writing literary fiction, like super hardcore stuff like Cormac McCarthy or Thomas Pynchon or Don DeLillo, you're not going to find those readers on Royal Road. You're not going to find those readers on fantasy forums or at Comic-Con. It's just not going to happen. And there's always someone that will say, you can find readers anywhere. Yes, but your job to save time is to find the place where most of them are congregating. And where is that, you may ask? Well, that generally is with other authors who are writing similar things to you. And a great way to find out how to brand or your aesthetic is to go look at people who are somewhat in your wheelhouse, who are successful, and see what they are doing. And I wouldn't say copy, but use what they are doing for inspiration. And I want to repeat right now, the last thing you want to do is go to that person's page. Let's say you write stuff like I do, and you go to my page and you look at my subscribers and you just message them your stuff. The last thing you want as an author, the worst way to build an audience is by randomly DMing people your work. It absolutely I would say, is creepy, is needy, and is not going to find the people that you want. The people that look at random DMs of a story and actually like get into it, I would say are probably lonely people who have no idea what is going on and most likely aren't going to be buying your stuff, or they're like retirees, or they're confused. Like my wife the other day, someone sent or a Substack DM and she's like, what is this? Then we were laughing. We're like, dude, this sucks. And like, but maybe if that person had developed a relationship or was known in that community and had built up trust slowly, then we would have been able to take it more seriously and like ponder it. Because that's what you have to realize, that is, if someone comes to your work and has no priming at all, then they are going to have a much higher chance of just abandoning the work. And this is especially true in the online world. If you have something that's printed in front of you, you're more likely to give it a little bit more time because it feels more real, because it is real. But online, I do it all the time. I'll read like a couple sentences like, you know what, I'm out of here on a random Substack post. But if I know that person, or if I feel a sense of trust, I will continue and give them a couple more chances before I quit. And so this process of creating trust, of finding these people and developing this relationship slowly, unfortunately, is an hour-long video that is in my free course. I hate to gatekeep it, but I go over all of it over there, plus everything else you need. But this is just the preliminary concepts, the type of readers, the paths of becoming a full-time author, and the concept that you have to create trust with people that you know most likely are going to like your work. And then when they get to your page, you have it laid out in a way that resonates to them and makes them say, wow, this person's is what I'm into. And then you will start to find your first real readers. Every other path, in my opinion, is bullshit. What are you going to do? Advertise? Get pimped out by publishing companies that can't sell books anyway? Spam people? Pray to the gods that someone finds you? Trust the Substack algorithm? It's not going to happen. This is up to you, and this is a guaranteed path. Slowly but surely, you can climb the mountain to 1,000 true fans. And then when you get there, you're done. You're a full-time author.